Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Baltic MR01 Blue. This watch is available from balticwatches.com for €670. The watch is available on a pre-order basis from the 13th of October to the 23rd of October inclusive. Now understand that the MR01 is one of Baltic's most popular watches. Their first batch of MR01s sold out almost immediately, so you only have 10 days to pre-order from the 13th to the 23rd inclusive. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets for the piece. So the watch comes in a watch box, which is protected by this black cardboard outer box. One removes the lid, and as you can see inside, we have another watch box. Has a cork effect finish to the lid, which contrasts with the matte black base. Hinged lid, finished to a good standard, and as you can see, the interior is fully upholstered with a fabric material to a very good standard, and the watch sits on a padded pillow cushion in the base, as one would expect, and that's also fully upholstered with a velour fabric to a very good standard. So very nice presentation, and immediately one gets the impression that the MR01 is a high quality piece which is made in France. With regards to the other items, one gets this cardboard wallet, and it contains the international warranty card. Now unusually, this is made from aluminium. Usually warranty cards are made from plastic, and in some cases they're actually made from leather, as per the Yema I recently reviewed. But this is actually made from metal, it's aluminium. On the reverse we have a QR code, and you scan the QR code and that activates the 2-year warranty. So at this price point, €670, one would expect a 12-month warranty. To get a 2-year warranty is very reassuring. And lastly, one also gets this owner's instruction manual for the MR01. Clear, concise diagrams, high definition pictures, and it's also bilingual. It's produced in both English and also French, because Baltic watches are made in France. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, this is the Baltic MR01 Blue. The MR01 is available in various style colour options. This is the blue version, which is my personal favourite. With regards to the dimensions, we have a 36mm case diameter. We have a 44mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 10.2mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The genuine Italian calf leather strap tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to the buckle and tang, and as you can see, the buckle is signed to a high standard with Baltic's logo engraved. Nice heavy gauge of metal to the 316L grade stainless steel buckle, flawless brushed satin finishing to the top side, underside and flanks, no sharp edges, no burrs, so it's a very well executed buckle and tang. Now the strap is one of my favourite aspects because this is Italian calf leather, and one can clearly tell that it's top grain leather because it's very soft and supple. In terms of quality, this is equal quality to the very best of Hirsch straps, which are made in Austria, and this Italian calf leather just is incredibly soft and supple. It's got the feeling of being very flexible, like a strap that you've owned for years and worn the watch on a daily basis, and the strap has become soft and broken in. That's the feeling of it. It really does feel like silicone rubber. That's how soft the leather is. So very high quality. It's embossed on the underside with Baltic on one side, and on the other side we have Italian calf leather. The stitching is absolutely flawless, and I'm very pleased to see that Baltic have made the correct decision by using stainless steel quick release spring bars rather than conventional spring bars, and that means one doesn't need a spring bar tool in order to remove the strap from the head of the piece. Now another correct decision they've made, which is unusual for a daily wear or dress piece, is they've used drilled lugs. So for example, if you remove this Italian calf leather strap using the quick release spring bars, but you want to fit an alternative strap and it doesn't have quick release spring bars, it has standard spring bars, you can simply depress the spring bar using the holes in the lugs, and that means that you're not going to damage the interior of the lugs. Often with leather straps, it's a tight fit to get them, especially when they're 20mm, they can be quite stiff. It's difficult to get a spring bar tool in between the lug and the edge of the strap without damaging both of them, but by having holes in the lugs, one can depress the spring bar externally, so very good attention to detail. With regards to the rest of the specification, we have a Hesselite domed crystal. Now the Hesselite is double domed, and you might be wondering why did they use Hesselite, because Hesselite isn't as scratch resistant and as hard as sapphire crystal, but however it does match the vintage aesthetic of this piece. Hesselite was used in vintage pieces in the 1960s and 1970s, so it really does suit the aesthetic of the watch. I think the Hesselite works very well because it doesn't have the characteristic distortion one gets with a single domed acrylic or Hesselite crystal. It's double domed, and that reduces the magnification effect and the distortion when one tilts the piece at an oblique angle. With regards to the dial, it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece because it actually has two different finishes. The main dial has a grained textured finish to it. It's matte blue, very nice tone to the matte blue. Now if you look at the sub dial, it's actually got a guilloche finish. It's got concentric circles, and the guilloche finishing on the sub dial contrasts with a grained finish to the main dial. The chaptering is a rail track chaptering, fully indexed with Arabic numerals and minute ticks, clearly legible. The white minute ticks contrast very well with the grained finish to the main dial. I like the fact the dial isn't over-branded with unnecessary text or specification. This is a daily wear or dress piece, so we don't need to know the water resistance, we don't need to know it's an automatic, we simply have the Baltic text logo at 12 o'clock and no other information, and I think they've made the correct decision by keeping it clean. The applied Arabic numerals are Breguet style, and the Breguet style numerals really do work very well with the aesthetic of the 36mm head of the piece size and also the domed Hesselite crystal. The mirror polishing to the leaf hands is some of the best quality hand finishing I have seen on a watch. It really is outstanding, and the mirror polishing to the applied Breguet style numerals is also done to a flawless standard. So the leaf hands complement the applied Breguet style silver numerals and also the silver subdial hand, and I think the proportion of the subdial is correct, and I also like the proportion of the hands, because if you look at the leaf hands, the minute hand extends all the way to the rail track chaptering, and also the hour hand extends all the way to the applied Breguet style numerals. Looking at the subdial, you can see the subdial hand is also correctly proportioned because it extends to the 60 ticks on the subdial. So they've got the correct dimensions and proportions of the dial, the Arabic numerals and also the leaf hands. The bezel is an unusual choice because it's mirror polished stainless steel, but it doesn't have a chamfer or bevel to it. It's actually a squared off profile, and this is something I haven't seen on a watch before. I've reviewed over 300 watches and I've never seen this square profile to a bezel. Usually bezels are chamfered or they have a bevel on the edge. This one has a square shoulder to it, and it's actually very aesthetically pleasing because it's mirror polished to the top side and also mirror polished to the edge. And no sharp edge to it, even though it has a squared profile without a chamfer. Absolutely gorgeous. Very nice attention to detail with the case, because in between the lugs they have engraved it to a high standard with Baltic and also the reference number. Now with regards to the case finishing, it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece because we have flawless mirror polishing to the tops of the lugs, which contrasts with the longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the flanks. This is some of the best case polishing I have seen on a watch. It's the kind of case polishing one would expect to see on a high-tier piece costing in excess of €5,000. So to get this level of high-grade finishing on a piece that costs €670 in the mid-tier is very impressive, and Baltic deserve full credit for it. The mirror polishing on the underside to the screwed down exhibition case back is also absolutely gorgeous. As you can see, screwed down exhibition case back, and it provides an effective hermetic seal to 30 meters, which is perfectly acceptable for a daily wear or dress piece. It does a good job of displaying the movement used, which is the Hangzhou caliber 5000A. With regards to the crown, it's solid 316L grade stainless steel, knurled finish to it, mirror polished domed cap, which is sterile. Personally, I would prefer if they signed the mirror polished domed cap with the Baltic text logo, but however, this is subjective. Some collectors will like the dress watch look of a mirror polished domed cap and a sterile crown. So let's test the push-pull crown execution. The push-pull crown provides an effective hermetic seal to 30 meters. As it's a push-pull crown rather than a screw-down crown, one can manually wind the caliber 5000A in the closed position. So absolute pleasure to manually wind the 5000A to its maximum 42-hour power reserve. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up. It feels very smooth, although there's a nice firm resistance to it. Pulling it out to the first click position is the final click position because we don't have a date complication with the 5000A. We're now in the time setting position. Now there is one negative to the caliber 5000A which I'm going to bring to your attention. If you look at the second hand on the subdial, you can see it's continuing to run even though I'm in the time setting position, because the 5000A doesn't have hacking. One cannot hack the movement to set the time precisely to the second. So that's something to bear in mind if you like watches with hacking and you like to set the time precisely, you like to stop the second hand dead. One cannot do that with the caliber 5000A. If you look at the second hand, you can see it continues to sweep around at 4 Hz, 28,800 vibrations per hour. So one cannot set it precisely to the second, that is a negative, but it is silky smooth. Clockwise and anti-clockwise, there's no backplay. Nice firm resistance to the gearing in the Calibre 5000A. I like the fact it feels like a good solid movement. There's an immediate response when one rotates the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise. The minute hand responds immediately. There's no backplay, it doesn't have any play in it, as you can see. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that reinstates the 30 metres of hermetic seal, which is perfectly acceptable for a daily wear or dress piece. So, with regards to the screw down exhibition case back, it's very well executed, flawless mirror polishing to the circumference, and the centre section is glazed with sapphire crystal. It's one of the largest exhibition case backs I've ever seen on a watch. Bearing in mind this is a small head of the piece, it's 36mm, but the proportion of the case back is actually very large. They've made the correct decision because they've made the stainless steel portion of the exhibition case back very slim and slender. It's got a nice domed curved profile to it, and if you look at the sapphire crystal, it's very flat and very large diameter. So it displays the Calibre 5000A to full effect, and they've made the correct decision because it's an absolutely gorgeous decorated movement to look at. Just absolutely beautiful. The way the milled stripes, which are like arabesque finishing on the bridges, and also the main plate, which has pelage finishing beneath the micro rotor. Blued screws are also very nice decoration. And it's very good to have a large diameter sapphire crystal displaying the Calibre 5000A. Right, so I can't give you a wrist shot because it's a 36mm head of the piece, and I'll just show you. Unfortunately, the Italian calf leather strap is just a fraction too short, as you can see. But at 36mm, this is clearly made for collectors with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches. If you're a collector with a 7 to 8 inch wrist, needless to say, you're going to find the 36mm to be slightly too small, and therefore the strap is also too short. But this strap will fit up to a 7-inch wrist, so if you have a 6 to 7-inch wrist, this will be no problem whatsoever. But however, I'll hold it on wrist, and therefore you can still get a wrist shot. Now, as you can see, at 36mm, it doesn't have enough wrist presence for my 8-inch wrist, but if you have a 6 to 7-inch wrist, you will enjoy the compact proportions. 36mm by 44mm lug to lug, so it has a relatively short lug to lug measurement. And of course, on a 6 to 7-inch wrist, you will enjoy the snug fit of the 44mm lug to lug. They've made the correct decisions by using a 20mm lug width, and the Italian calf leather strap tapers from 20 down to 16 at the buckle and tang. So the proportions of the strap are correct, and also the lug to lug is correct for a 6 to 7-inch wrist. Now, it's deceptively low profile. It's only 10.2mm thick, and that is the kind of thickness one would expect with a quartz powered piece or a mechanical manual wind piece. This is an automatic with a micro rotor, and the benefit of using a micro rotor is the micro rotor is smaller and can be recessed into the movement, so therefore it's not as high profile as using a full-size rotor, and that means they've been able to reduce the thickness despite this using a double-domed Hesselite crystal. Had they used a full-size rotor movement, this would be in excess of 13mm. 10.2 is very low profile. The thing I most like about this piece is it is only 48 grams on the Italian calf leather strap, so it feels absolutely weightless and invisible on wrist. The comfort level is 10 out of 10, it is sublime, and the feel good factor is also 10 out of 10. The mirror polished applied Breguet style numerals and the leaf hands contrast very well with a grained matte blue dial, and also the silver subdial hand contrasts very well with a guilloche finishing to the background. Legibility is outstanding, feel good factor is outstanding, and despite having no AR coating on the underside of the Hesselite, it's actually clearly legible due to the contrast of the silver Breguet style numerals and the silver leaf hands, which are mirror polished. Right, so there's no lume on the dial and applied indices and applied Arabic numerals, so therefore we don't need to do a lume test. So let's discuss the movement, because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. The Hangzhou Calibre 5000A is one of the best decorated movements I've seen. I love the milled stripes, which are curved in profile on the bridges. They look like arabesque finishing. They've also milled curved stripes on the rotor, and as you can see, it's a micro rotor, which is gilt. And it also looks like arabesque finishing. It's also engraved to a very high standard with Baltic watches. The blued screws add nice decoration. And my favourite detail is below the micro rotor. We've also got pelage finishing, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. The level of finishing to this movement is just incredible, bearing in mind It's a mid-tier piece at €670. The thing I like about Baltic watches is they're an honest micro brand. They make their watches in France. The watches are designed and assembled in France, but they make no secret of the fact that they don't make the movements in France. This is a Hangzhou caliber 5000A, which is made in China. And rather than brand it as a Baltic watches caliber and make a lie about saying it's made by Baltic in-house, they've been open and honest and said it's a Hangzhou caliber 5000A, which is decorated with Baltic watches. And I think they deserve credit for that, because unlike other micro brands, they haven't been dishonest about the origin of the movement they're using. As you can see, the caliber 5000A is engraved to a very high standard, and also the engraving is gilted to perfection. And I love the gold tone of the gilt engraving, as you can see. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and I love the way the light catches the arabesque finishing to the bridges and the pelage finishing beneath the rotor. It's just a very good looking movement to look at. So, with regards to the specifications of the movement, the Hangzhou caliber 5000A is made in China. It's an automatic with micro rotor, as I've detailed. It has 30 joules. It runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz. The 4 Hz gives the second hand on the guilloche subdial a nice smooth sweep, rather than using a 3 Hz movement such as the Seiko NH35A, for example, which runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour. I like the smooth sweep to the guilloche subdial, and the 28,800 vibrations per hour is a good compromise between accuracy and power reserve. 42-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy of the caliber 5000A is plus or minus 20 seconds per day. Now, it's regulated in 5 positions, and I'm pleased to report that Baltic are very well regulating the caliber 5000A. This one is running consistently at plus 5 seconds per day, which is outstanding accuracy. It's actually within chronometer limits of -4 to +6. So although the stated accuracy is plus or minus 20, this is actually running at +5, and that's very good. So really the only negative to the caliber 5000A is the lack of hacking. That's something you need to bear in mind. One cannot stop the second hand dead. But the micro rotor does work very well. If you wear the piece for 8 to 12 hours per day, the micro rotor will wind bidirectionally, and it will top it up to its maximum 42-hour power reserve. Alternatively, you can top up the power reserve by manually winding it. And the advantage of having a push-pull crown is you don't need to pull out the crown. You can manually wind it in the closed position and feel the tension in the mainspring building up to its maximum 42 hours. So it's good to have the micro rotor and wind it automatically, and also good to have manual winding. The lack of the hacking is the only negative. It's a reliable, well-proven workhorse caliber. The build quality, quality control, materials and finishing are all outstanding. If you look at the finishing, you can see for yourself it's just incredible. This is the kind of finishing one would expect to see on a German-made or Swiss-made caliber. The pelage finishing is incredible, the arabesque finishing is incredible, blued screws are also finished to an exceptional standard. So it's a beautifully decorated movement, and I think it justifies the price point of the piece. Right, so lastly I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So €670 is the price point of this piece. Yes, I consider it to be excellent quality. However, I don't consider the value to be excellent. I'm going to say the value is good, but not excellent. I think in order to make this MR01 Blue more competitive, Baltic should consider reducing the price point from €670 to a lower price point to make it more competitive. Now, the reason why I say that is the Hangzhou caliber 5000A has been used by several Chinese brands. Now, I appreciate the production costs in terms of labour cost and manufacturing cost in France, which is where this watch is assembled, are higher than in China. So, of course, Baltic as a micro brand can't compete with Chinese brands. But however, they are using a Chinese movement. The Hangzhou caliber 5000A is made in China. So the watch is assembled and regulated in France, and therefore that's the reason for the higher retail price. They need to cover the additional production costs and labour costs. But I think to make the watch more competitive, they need to reduce the price slightly from €670. But having said that, the quality of the finishing, the build's quality, the quality control is all 10 out of 10. It's a very well made piece, and I think they've made some correct decisions by using Hesselite rather than sapphire crystal with AR coating, because it does look like a vintage piece. Also, the applied Breguet numerals and the leaf hands do make it a vintage looking piece with a subdial with guilloche finishing. So the quality of the case finishing, the bezel finishing and the case back finishing do justify the price, and the decoration to the movement is also exceptional. So good choice of movements. I like the micro rotor, I like its 42 hours and also like its 5 seconds per day accuracy. So no negatives to the watch other than the lack of hacking. If you're looking for a daily wear piece or potentially a dress piece, and you like 36mm pieces because you have a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, this will suffice. So I'm going to say it's excellent quality, and I'm going to say it's good value. I'm going to highly recommend it to you for consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Baltic MR01 Blue. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.